Yeah, I want to go on real briefly. What's the deal with the relationship or the scam, I call it, with Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev? I'm saying his name wrong, I know it, but sorry. But anyway, I just want to point out something here, too, because Vladimir Putin, I swear, he's got some kind of personal ego problem, and I am not knocking him for his height or at all. I am not. But it's something that he fears in his mind, and that is quite obvious that he's very sensitive about it. I'm going to show some pictures here. Him, Vladimir Putin, standing next to Medvedev. I'm saying his name wrong, I know it, but he's Medvedev is 5'4" tall. Vladimir Putin, I think, is 5'5". I think he's about an inch taller. That's not an issue. I don't freaking think that's an issue at all. I think it's an issue in the mind of Vladimir Putin himself, and he's always portrayed himself as, the big man of Russia. Actually, most people in Russia are pretty tall. They're as a people, most people in Russia are quite tall compared, I guess, to the average person in the world. But I do know that people of shorter stature are can be very strong in any way, either physically, mentally, or whatever, spiritually. So it does not matter. But I'm going to point out something else here, though, because this has been a very carefully contrived, orchestrated scam to be used against the West. And everything in Russia basically is approved per the party in the background, as Major Anatoly Golitsyn always stated. Medvedev actually was somebody who came about to, appease the West during the certain times that there was more tensions going on even after the Soviet Union fell apart. He's basically, now he looks more the part of a Western type leader than what you would see from people were used to before with the Soviet Union when it existed. And basically, that's what the party itself wants to portray. But he was always controlled, actually, by Vladimir Putin. Now, some people think that's a good thing, but that's actually a bad thing, because the more things seem to have changed in Russia, the less they have changed. It's never changed at all. It's a terrible situation. And but there's one thing, actually, Medvedev stated he was going to try to do, it I think would have been excellent for the Russian people specifically, and I'll get on with that. But he's been in power for a long time, and I think Putin's basically throwing him to the wolves right now. But he was also widely regarded as more liberal than Putin. Medvedev's top agenda as president was a wide-ranging modernization program aimed at modernization of Russia's economy and society, in lessening the country's reliance on oil and gas. That in itself actually would be an extremely good thing if that was allowed to come about, because it's when the price of commodities go down, Russia suffers a lot, and actually the elite don't suffer as much. The people suffer first. So that would have been a good policy. Because Russia actually does have a great number of engineers, and if you can spread out where the economic revenue is all coming from in different industries versus in the commodities, oil and materials industries, that would greatly help Russia. So that's one thing he would have done, that if he was kept at it, he would have been fine. But the problem is, I think he was somebody that they put up there to basically for specific goals, and I think one of the damn goals was this: when they had the Russian-Georgian war, that caused a recession in Russia. But there was another thing too that also created much more tensions between Russia and the West, right? But Russia did emerge victorious in that. But the thing is, with Medvedev as, and I know I'm saying his name wrong. I don't pronounce it correct. I'll say it Medvedev. That's the way I know how to say it. But he's going to basically, his image was much better than prior leaders in Russia, especially when it was the Soviet Union. He's got much more Western appeal, but that's what the party behind the scenes wanted. The thing is, this guy actually never really was a democratically elected president in a true sense. He did not. He's coming from the party itself, basically as image control. But one of the things he did in foreign policy, and this is what I call his dangerous strategic long-range deception, was the signing of the New START Treaty, which was the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. And basically, there's no way to verify what Russia's actually doing. I don't think the United States even is doing the treaty like they said. I don't know. I really don't know what's going on at all. But that was part of the reason to do this, because it looked like Russia was moving away from communism, so disarm the United States. But I guess the real overall game here is to disarm the United States, because if the United States gets crushed, along with that goes the Constitution, the limited form of government, and everything else that still remains in the United States. That's what I think is up. The game is long range to do. Whereas if there's a major war by a weakened United States, and the United States gets hurt bad enough, it's going to cause the demolition of the rest of the Constitution and the true limited government of the United States itself. I know a lot of it is not being used to the way it should be, but it's still there. The thing is, once you eliminate it, you're never going to get it back. If you think it's tough now to change something due to lethargic people, if you eliminate that Constitution and a limited form of government, it's going to be impossible to get back. Just about impossible. I don't know how you would, but Medvedev basically was somebody put up by the party himself to appeal to the West, and part of his main goal was to get this New START treaty signed, because I don't think Russia's complying with this at all. I'm almost sure of it, because I've read many things over the years when they got so many secret programs going. There's a lot of conflict as to what they really have. I think they probably do have far more nukes than the United States does. It's just a matter of time as when it will be used. I hate to say that, but I think that's what's going on. But the one thing he would have been really good for, Medvedev, is, skip all the garbage about, Russian pride. Is he Slavic? Is he this? Or does he go to church? Does he kiss babies? Does he go hunting into Siberia with a horse or something? The main thing that really Russian people ought to worry about is a strong, diversified economy that can be self-sustaining with its own country, and that would have been one thing Medvedev was trying to do. That would have been smart. That would have been smart, because it's good for everybody across the board. Now, I'm going to say this: these guys on the top, like Putin and Medvedev, they're fantastically wealthy. I don't know what the hell. I know, I don't want to say, but there's relatives of Medvedev, they're loaded, and Putin's loaded. They're billionaires, man. These are multi-billionaires. But it's like each one of them is being put up by the party itself. Obviously, and it's obvious to everybody concerned, that Putin is basically the stronger man of the relationship, and he's far more connected because of his, he was former head of the KGB. Whereas Medvedev came from an academic background, more an illegal academic background. So there is quite a bit of divergence between their, where they came from. But the whole idea for Medvedev, he wasn't somebody who just came out of the blue. He was supported by the party in the background, and a lot of it was to get that START treaty signed. Now, what Obama's doing. He's, dismantling more of, the nuclear deterrence of the United States, where behind the scenes, actually, Russia's been building up. That's been going on for a long time. I don't know when it's going to happen. I mean, I know you can talk about it, and I'm not worried about it because ain't nothing I could do about it. But, the problem is with Vladimir Putin, this guy, he's become somebody very obvious to me that he's, I know he's got his image where he goes to church. He plays to the Russian people the right words. He says the right things. He does the right picture poses and stuff to show he's a great patriot. He cries at the national anthem. He does all these different things. But when it comes down to it, he's a very cold and ruthless businessman. When he in other words, if right now we saw the 15th richest Russian businessman in Russia come under investigation, but a lot of it is due to the smaller amount of resources that are available for the people on the top, Vladimir Putin and maybe some others. So they're basically fighting each other because as oil prices and commodity prices go down, it's hurting these guys big time in the pocketbook. So Vladimir Putin is looking to get something from somebody else that's around him. But eventually he's going to lash out at the West. But a lot of people think this guy is, Putin is a hero to, I don't know, like he represents like the big man, he's this and that. He's actually somebody of, Medvedev is actually 5'4" tall. I don't want to get on with this height deal too much, but sometimes I think this plays upon the psyche of Vladimir Putin a great deal because he actually has to show himself to be bigger than life all the time with his public relations, PR people, where he's showing that, oh, I am the greatest Russian guy, I'm this, I'm that, He's actually a pretty tiny person. He is. Now, I'm not saying that in itself is bad, but what's bad about it is it seems he has some kind of ego complex about it. And it's kind of like fits in with anything where if he feels threatened, he's going to lash out. This guy's actually a very dangerous guy for world peace. Big time. Big time. But he's pretty good as far as like, but I want to state this though. The Western powers, the elite, the real elite, the monopolistic elite, the ones that are capitalists but hate competition, those type of guys, they've always been in cahoots with the communists from day one. That's a given. So the problem really isn't like East versus West. But most Americans realize that there's corruption in Washington, D.C., Wall Street, and in the political system and all that type of stuff. The problem is a lot of people in Russia just follow this guy, Vladimir Putin, right off the freaking side of a cliff. That's the problem. Like, I'm not somebody who supports Obama or some garbage like that, and I don't give a damn if I had a war hero up in the White House and he was, he was an expert marksman and all this kind of garbage. I wouldn't just go support him because of that. I mean, it's like his job is to just enforce the laws that are elected by the people's representatives in the Congress, and he's not supposed to violate anybody's rights. I don't worship any leader. I don't give a damn how good they are. That's anti-American to worship any leader. So, but I just want to point out that Medvedev actually was put up to appeal to and appease the West and get that START treaty signed, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. And it was basically to help with the relations after, the Russia-Georgian War. So it's all a scam. Everything that's going on in Russian politics, there's no elections at all, period. I mean, you could say stuff like that about the United States or Wall Street and all this garbage, but it's the power in the United States government is actually in the hands mainly of the House of Representatives and Congress. You elect those guys every 2 years. They pass all the laws. They can impeach any president they want. They can defund anything they don't like. And you people elect them every 2 years. There's nothing like that in Russia. And also enshrined in American law is the Bill of Rights itself, which does not grant you your rights, but it just makes sure that it's recognized in law that you have a lot of rights. The problem is, people are too lethargic to push back. But if we ever get a system in the United States that's even remotely like Russia, we're not even close yet. People don't even realize how bad it is over there. People will actually lose all their freedoms, including freedoms of the internet. But Medvedev was basically put up as to appease the West, appeal to the West, and it's all a scam. I personally think this guy, Medvedev, would have been a good leader, though, because of the issue I talked about here before, not the START treaty, but the modernization program for Russia, where he would have been pushing for more diversified businesses and economies within the aggregate economy, where they're not so Russia's not so dependent upon oil, gas, coal, and commodities, and the economy could self-sustain itself because there's a lot of there'd be a lot of entrepreneurs and craftsmen and blue-collar workers in Russia that can go into business for themselves and sell their goods and services to other Russians and keep a vibrant economy going. Actually, people ought to be more concerned about that rather than putting on a big image that somebody's like the big macho man of Russia. And again, I want to repeat, I think that's dangerous with Putin because his personality is, he seems to have a very big complex about his height. And I think that might have been why he went into the KGB and learned judo and all this other garbage. It's almost like, yeah, well, I'm small, but I'm a badass. That's almost like what I think he's about. And, I think he's 5'5" tall. Medvedev is 5'4". Putin, sometimes they have him listed as 5'7", but I think he wears elevator shoes. But if you look at a lot of these pictures, him together with Medvedev, they're about the same height. And Medvedev has no problem saying he's 5'4" tall. You see, there's nothing wrong with a person being height or different height. I mean, I could tell you that a lot of the Japanese people are generally shorter than the Caucasian people, but the Japanese people are some of the hardest working, most honorable people going. And I mean, I got a lot of respect for them. I mean, I'm definitely not trying to say anything that bad about it, that if a person's this height or that height. I'm just saying that it seems to be a problem with Putin in his mind, and he worries about it, and he worries about his image too much. That makes him a dangerous leader in itself. But people are getting conned by getting behind this guy, because when it really comes down to it, he's about number one. And what the big problem is, if Putin, I don't think he's ever going to go out of power, ever. I think he's going to go right to World War III before he'll never go out of power. But say, for instance, he was knocked out of power by an elected process. The next guy that would come into power, if Putin was like basically, pushed off to the side, would find out all the garbage that was going on under the Putin regime, and you'd see the same kind of blame that would be going on. His name would be mud. Basically like Khrushchev did that with, Stalin, and Brezhnev did that with Khrushchev, and so on. Gorbachev did that with Brezhnev, and they're all blaming the predecessor. You'll see a lot of stuff come out on Putin with the next guy. He's not going to allow that. That's what's unfortunate about it. And actually, Russia's never even had a glimpse of real democracy or constitutional republic ever. The closest they ever got was with Medvedev. But, you shouldn't be worried about the image of what he's doing as a person. Is he riding out there on a horse? Is he, his policy, Medvedev's policies of about improving and diversifying the Russian economy so it's not so dependent upon oil and gas, that would have been a very smart thing to do. But because right now what it looks like is the West, the Western guys, whatever the hell they are, they're trying to punish Russia by bringing down the commodities prices. And, if Medvedev had his way, they wouldn't be able to do that. That's another thing, too, if you want to look at it that way. But, I don't know, I just look at peace is only going to be happen if there's a lot of prosperity. And prosperity is about keeping busy in a productive way. And it's not, the whole economy in Russia shouldn't just be about oil and natural gas and selling to the world export market. It should be about many more things. So that's one thing Medvedev was doing was very good. You know? So what it boils down to is you want to have true economic freedom. And when the people of Russia get true economic freedom and they could stand on their own 2 feet and they could tell everybody to go to hell because they're independent all the way, they'll have real leaders that are elected by them versus appointed by the party. I think all of them have been appointed by the party even since the fall of the Soviet Union. That's the way it's been. It's one big long-range scam. It ain't good what it's going down to, I got to say that.